This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. In now more than 5 years of its existence, this podcast has brought me personally extremely much. I've learned so many life lessons, so much wisdom, received so much food for thought, inspiration, got inspired about parenting, about marriage, about being a daughter, about just being a human in this world. But editing the episode today, I was reminded yet again about how much more I'm learning, how much I'm learning about the world. I've learned through my guests about the Ubuntu philosophy, for instance, about what real harems used to look like, about Indian immigrants in Africa, about the last queen of Hawaii and the whole Hawaiian culture and its royalty, about witch hunts that are still going on in Africa, about the misogyny in Japanese culture, and so many, many more things. Today, in this episode, I've learned that the Cuban Revolution has not started as a communist revolution originally. It turned into a communist revolution or regime much later. I just wanted to acknowledge and tell you how grateful I am that this podcast is not only offering us so much mother's wisdom and inspiration for life and lessons for life, but also opening the world and its history and its cultures to us. I hope you will enjoy and find this episode as interesting as I did. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Ana Tider. My guest today is Ana Hebra Flaster. Ana is originally from Cuba, but she moved with her whole extended family to the US in 1967 when she was only 5. Ana is a former software engineer, but then Ana started writing and has written a lot. She has written about Cuba and Cuban-American experience for national print and online media, including the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Boston Globe, as well as for her popular Substack at Cuba Curious. But we are here to talk about Ana's first book, a memoir called Property of the Revolution, from a Cuban Barrio to a New Hampshire Mill Town, which chronicles Ana's extraordinary journey of her whole family from post-revolutionary Cuba to a snowy New Hampshire mill town. Ana is also a mom of 2. And I am very excited to say hello and welcome to Ana. Hi, Ana.
Hi, Ana. I don't often run into other Anas with one N.
And you are probably very used to Anna, are you?
Anna. I'm called Anna, and I'm called Honor in New Hampshire because of the accent. Well, I was called Anner and Honor. And rarely Ana.
Aren't you grateful, because I am, to Frozen, the movie? Because since Frozen, Americans started asking, are you Anna or are you Anna? Yes. And Frozen made it possible for me to say, I am Anna. And Anna, they would say, great. Hi, Ana.
Yeah, I know. How did you end up with one N instead of 2 N's?
Croatian Anas have 1 N.
I didn't know that. Yes. I thought it was only the Spanish Ana that had 1 N.
No.
Are there any other countries that have Anas with only 1 N?
No, not that I can think of. It's interesting because Russian Annas have two N.
Two
Because
N's,
you would think
Italian.
that Croatian Anna would be connected to Russian Anna,
Yes.
but it's not. I do not know how we ended up with one N.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm
Yes,
fascinated by that.
yes. And I love it so much with one
Yeah,
N.
and it's easy. Me too. It's easier. Imagine we were at the top of our class, right? In first grade.
Yeah.
Bam, Anna, you can do that in a jiffy, right? Thank you, Mama. Thank you,
Yes,
Mama.
thank you, Mama. Um, Anna, tell me a little bit about yourself. We will talk a lot about your family and the whole move from Cuba to the U.S. Yeah, maybe if you can tell me shortly about this, and then I would really like to know how this switch happened from being a software engineer to becoming a writer.
Okay. As you said, at the age of 5, something huge happened in my life. And in the span of 48 hours, basically, I lost our Cuban life, our Cuban world. My parents had been waiting for 3 years for their exit visas. My parents, like many working class Cubans, had supported the revolution, but never thinking it was going to be a communist revolution. Just that they were going to bring Cuba back to democracy and restore the constitutional democracy of 1940.
Anna, sorry to interrupt you now, but I would love us here because we often take for granted that we know things and people know things. Let's talk a little bit about Cuba and what happened. Why
Yeah,
was there a revolution and what?
yeah, that's. I'm glad you stopped me on that because there are some misconceptions about the revolution, the Cuban Revolution, that have taken hold and are not right. They are misconceptions. So there's this myth that Cubans were looking for a communist revolution and Fidel Castro answered the call. But Cuba it's actually considered a model of liberal democratic constitutional principles that were in its 1940 constitution. And they had peaceful transfers of power beginning then. There had been political turmoil before, but it was a growing country with net immigration always, not hemorrhaging citizens like it
Mm-hmm.
has been in the last decades. And anyway, but what happened is that there was a coup in 52. The country was taken over by Batista, a general. Life went on as usual, but you couldn't criticize him too much or oppose his dictatorship. So if you were a media, a newspaper or a TV, you were censored. If you crossed a line, the line was pretty high, but if you crossed the line, you were shut down, and then you could open again months later, a few months later. It was sort of a penalty, but then you came back. But the rebels in the countryside and also students in Havana wanted the restoration of of democracy, and most Cubans did, although some didn't, because the economy was super strong. It had a GDP per capita equivalent to many Southern European countries at the time. It ranked very highly, Cuba, in literacy, healthcare, roads per capita, whatever the categories of economic development measurements are. So people believed that this revolution was going to restore democracy, not bring in communism. And that's why you saw hundreds of thousands leaving right away. My mother had risked her life for the revolution. She, at 17, joined a clandestine cell collecting medicine and money for the rebels. And she was caught one day and almost arrested. But that's a story that's in the book. A neighbor who was a police officer saw it happening, intervened, and saved her. Then, when the rebels took over and were in power, gangs came to anybody connected to Batista's police or anything. They arrived at his house and they were going to hang him. And people loved this man. and ran to my mother's house because they knew that she was high up in this student revolutionary group. And she went and intervened and saved him.
How did you get to New Hampshire? Because you needed some kind of a visa to.
So, well, no, we came as Freedom Flight Cubans. So LBJ had set up this program of freedom flights to try to save Cubans from drowning at sea because many had drowned trying to escape. So we were legally political refugees. Once you got to Miami, at that point, they didn't want any more Cubans in Miami. There were plenty of signs, no dogs, no Cubans across South Florida. And my aunt was in New York. So we went to New York City. From there, a family of carpenters from our barrio who had been sponsored by a Baptist church in New Hampshire and were living in New Hampshire. Somehow they found out that we were in New York, in the Cuban grapevine, who knows how. And they found us. They came down, they talked to my father and said that it was a great town. The schools were good. There were lots of factory jobs. People were nice. There was a lot of snow, but they were trying to figure that out. And so he went back with them and in one visit got a house to rent and got jobs for all the adults. And the person he rented the house from was a foreman at a rubber boot factory. And he said, don't worry about this is the first American hero in our family.
Mm.
Don't worry about paying me the rent until you guys get your first paychecks. And I'll hire anybody who's of working age for my assembly line. And off we were.
It was intense to read about your mom's 2 jobs, her working 2 shifts in order to be able to afford certain things we nowadays take so for granted.
Yeah, cookies. I mean, that seems like you're being so materialistic. But a parent wants to be able to buy a treat for their child, And when I asked them about that, they were so happy to be able to work and have 2 jobs and be able to get us eventually after we stopped wearing Salvation Army clothes to get us our own boots and to feed us and clothe us as any parent would want. And you weren't able to do that in Cuba.
So I'm going to fast forward now a little. So you got educated in the States. What was your education story? And
yeah, I went through public schools in Nashville, New Hampshire. They were very good. And then I went to a private women's college. It's got a very great reputation, Smith College. I studied economics and Spanish literature, lived a year in Spain during my junior year, did work study, financial aid, and scholarships, and still owed a ton of money when I graduated. Started working in software because it was the most lucrative job. And I didn't know anything about programming, but they trained us. And let me tell you, Anna, I was probably the world's worst programmer and not good at my job. But they fortunately found out that I had other skills.
So when did the switch happen? When did you start writing? And
I had a small business for a while too. I hired another woman and we were a desktop publishing and marketing team. Then I decided I wanted to do something internationally to use my Spanish. And I joined a manufacturing software company and I was a manager for their international group and got to travel to Latin America and Europe. But then I had our daughter in 1992. And after a year of working, I just knew that I couldn't be what I wanted to be either at work or at home. And my husband and I figured out that we could scrimp by. It was a big challenge financially, but we did it. And so while I was taking care of Natalia and Sam, who came 3 years later, I started writing, which I'd always loved, and started publishing little pieces. And then I got onto National Public Radio with some commentaries and started doing freelance work. And one thing led to another. And I obviously always gravitated toward Cuba and Latin American news and got lucky and got published in those papers you mentioned. And I got on TV too, on a program called Stories from the Stage, where I tell my story. I've always wanted to write the book. I've always wanted to tell our family story. I think that children know when they see an injustice.
How long have you been working on it?
I started seriously working on it in 2018. Well, first, I did like 4 months of work on structure, how I was going to tell 2 generations, 3 generations of stories, and add history. There's a lot of history in the book, and add some very personal developments in my family. I wanted to show that the immigrant experience doesn't end. People look at me today and they're shocked that I have moments where, I realize I'm not American. I never was American fully. I have a dual identity, and that affects me as a mother. I want to continue. I wanted to continue to sing the same songs, the same nursery rhymes, the same traditions, and our way of life to some extent, which was, extended family living, multi-generational living, family wall to wall, in your face for better or worse, which is, I think, difficult for Americans to live that way, but it saved us. And I was so grateful that my parents and my aunt and uncle stayed together, and and my grandmother, and we could all grow up the way we would have grown up in Cuba.
Mm. Well, congratulations to the book.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful, beautiful read. I was, of course,
Thank you.
very touched by all the women, all the strong, strong, strong women you talk about throughout the generations that bring so much wisdom, which we are going to talk about. Tell me about your mother. I'd like to start talking about Mama Consuelo. She passed away in the meantime.
Yes, she passed away in 2014. She was the youngest of the viejos, the youngest of the elders, and no one expected that. And it was a horrible, horrible loss, and it triggered many other losses after that because it has a ripple effect.
Yeah. How old was she?
She was 73.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 63 now, and I think that that's young. It seemed to me young then. But my mother was quite the woman. She was a tomboy in the barrio. She stole hens. She stole eggs from hen houses. She walked on stilts and played in the hydrants when they would open the hydrants. She hunted tarantulas for fun. She roller skated everywhere. She fell in love with my father, who lived down the street. And he's 9 years older. He had a baseball career. She always thought he was very handsome, and he thought she was so cute, but she was actually, they told a story. She was on my great grandmother's lap as a baby, and he would be throwing the ball in the air and catching it with his glove, going off to play in the sand lot. And he would tell Vicenta, take care of that baby. Maybe one day I'll marry her.
And he did.
And he did. So at 17, my mother, it was roughly 1957, like many young students, wanted to help the rebels, joined the clandestine cell that I mentioned, broke up with my father, who was traveling back and forth because he played professionally in the United States in the farm leagues. She didn't want to risk his life in any way if something happened to her. No one in the family, none of her friends knew what she was up to. But here she was doing something that, had she been caught, she would have been jailed, certainly, most likely abused in who knows how many ways, and potentially killed, because there were plenty of rebels who lost their lives. Then she's thrilled about the rebels coming, and it turns out to be a worse dictatorship than Batista's. Not only that, she can't leave. They can't leave. And there's also the economy collapsed. So there was no food. There were rolling blackouts at night, all of this is the same.
Oh, we had that in Croatia, Yugoslavia back then as well.
Yeah, it's the communist playbook. And that is all happening in Cuba today. The same exact problems.
Oh, how did she get back with your father?
He came back. It was only 6 months after the rebels took over. He came back to Cuba and had decided that he didn't want to play baseball anymore. So he came back to the barrio. and they rekindled the relationship. They were married in 62. No, 61. I was born in 62. They applied for their exit visas in 64, crossed their fingers, lived without a job because jobs were only for revolutionaries for 3 years. And in 67, the guard showed up with the exit.
Okay. So by my math now, she's in her late 20s with 2 children.
Yeah, she's in 26.
When she arrives to the States, a new country, doesn't speak a language, 2 children, family, and snow.
No, exactly. And she was grieving. She had grown up in a multi-generational home. You know, in rich countries, wealthy countries, we're used to getting up and flying across the country for study or work, and that you might even settle there. But that's not how Cubans were then, and most Latinos, in my experience. You stay close to home. And caring for your elders is really important. You don't leave a viejo behind. And that haunted all of them, that they left their viejos behind for the rest of their lives, that bothered them. But mommy was very forward thinking. The way she told our story, and we believed it, this was our origin myth, which is she's responsible for, we won. We are superheroes. We beat communism. We got out of Cuba. We beat Fidel. Look at us go. And ánimo y adelante, spirit and onward. And that made us feel invincible, even though we shouldn't have felt invincible. We didn't have money. We didn't understand the culture. We didn't understand the language. My grandmother cried from the time she got up until the time she went to bed. She took it the hardest. She lost the most. She didn't want to come. But she came because her brother said, I'll take care of Papa. You go, you need to be with your daughters and take care of your daughter's children when your daughters and their husbands are working. And so she did. And it was at a time when there was no Spanish TV, radio, newspaper. And she was in the, it got dark at 4:00. She had nobody, no other abuelas to cry with or talk to. And she was alone most of the time because everybody was working 2 jobs with us. And that's why the book is dedicated to Abuela. And had she not come, I don't know what would have become of us, because we were loved hard and every day, as I say in the book, 3 mothers, 2 fathers, cousins who were brothers. And that is the super power of an immigrant family. When you have that, you have a great chance of success.
So Mama worked. Tell me about the rest of her life.
Oh, yeah. For 50-something years, they were married. She was the love of my father's life and vice versa, even though they were radically different people. But Mommy started at the boot factory. She took jobs at other factories, like they had even like day gigs. Then she applied for a job at a CVS, at a store, and got the job. And that changed the trajectory. Although retail was very hard and we didn't see her much because she was working constantly. She became the manager of the store. She then became the manager of the largest of that chain in New England. She mentored many, many young women who she hired, who were in high school, over the years. And she loved to teach and give moral lessons. And so those women still remember her and all that she taught them. And they would say, and it's in the book, she was especially vocal about choice of boyfriends. And there are stories in the book about how she advised the girls. And they would say, dump him, which meant dump him. That's how my mother, the accent, dump him. Because if she said, do not put up with anything from a guy, ever. Dump him. If you give him a chance, and then that's it. no time to fool around.
No time. What a fantastic advice.
Yeah. And then she ended up working as a internal revenue service representative for a while, and then she hated it. And then she went and worked for the post office, and that was her last job. Oh no, her last job really was interpreting for the Board of Health and in schools in Nashville.
She changed jobs and she really grew through her professional life, huh?
And she had no fear. You know, her
Yeah.
number one lesson to me was ponte guapa, make yourself brave.
Please help me with this. I called one of my dearest friends who is Spanish, and I said, I left her a message. She didn't answer. She lives in Korea right now, so it's hard to get a hold of her. And I said, you know, I'm getting across this ponte grappa, guapa. Sorry, grappa. I like to drink grappa.
Mm-hmm.
Guapa saying, and I know guapa only as beautiful.
Yes.
So I'm
So,
very confused how that means stay brave
yes. Yeah. In
or make
Cuba,
yourself brave.
yes. In Cuba, it has two meanings. Primarily, it's brave. In many other Latin American countries, maybe most, it means primarily beautiful.
Okay.
So make yourself beautiful, ponte guapa, is what they would say at a beauty store, you know, in Spain. Or make yourself up. It might mean that in Spain.
Okay.
But in Cuba, when you say, oye, ponte guapo, te tienes que poner guapo, you have to be strong. You have to be strong, make yourself brave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Think about it, Ana. Brave is beautiful.
Yeah. That's interesting. This is what I'm asking. It's an interesting connection between beautiful and
Yes.
brave.
Yeah.
Oh, so we are at Mama's first lesson. Mama
Mama's
Consuelo's
person.
first lesson.
Yes.
Ponte
Yeah.
guapa.
And
Make
that's
yourself brave.
right at the beginning of the book. I remember her telling me that one day when I fell off my bike in Cuba. Ponte guapa. And I think she hypnotized me when she said it because I heard it my life whenever I was afraid, when I thought I couldn't do something. Ponte guapa. I tell my kids, I speak at schools quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell the kids at the end two things: ponte guapo o guapa, and talk to your viejos, talk to your old people.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you do this. This is why we are in this podcast and why it already
Yes.
has 180 episodes, because we can learn so much from our old
So,
elders.
so much. We think we're the only ones that have felt what we feel. And this is how you find tranquility when you see, oh God, I'm not the first one. I'm not the only
Yeah.
one. This is humanity. This is
Yeah. And you know what helps through all these stories? These too shall pass. You see, they've all been through this, and it doesn't define you. Things don't define you, and it comes and goes.
it does. And you survive and life goes on. That's actually one of my mother's other sayings, or she loved saying that. It's an American saying, life goes
Yeah.
on. But life does go on. And what looks like an impossible situation or an impossible loss,
Mm.
we are humans and we're going to keep going. That's life goes on. And it's a choice sometimes, but life goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom told me, that was such a touching moment when she was in her cancer treatment, and we both stayed guape.
Yeah.
We were
Well,
very strong,
I'm sure.
very
I'm sure.
strong, as Cubans and Croatian ladies would be. But at one point, I started crying, and she said, "Do not cry, Anna. This too is life." And
This,
that just stuck with me. This too is life. It's like, don't cry.
oh,
This too is life. That's part
that
of it.
is that.
That's
Exactly.
deep. Yeah.
It's exactly true. That it is the circle of life.
Mm,
And she had great faith, though. I don't know if faith helped your mom when she was facing all of that. No,
no, no.
mommy had great faith, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in the book, obviously, there were some miracles that she experienced, and she was an atheist. She'd been an atheist, but after those things happened to her, she changed, and her God and her Virgin, la Virgen, mi Dios y mi Virgen, uh, were great comforts to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how I didn't lose it at all, at any time in front of my mother, because I went to every chemo treatment. everything. I was with her nonstop. And in fact, I went the other way and I would say to her, we're going to be fine.
Mm.
We're going to be fine. And she would say to me, that's what I need to hear. And, being guapa, she really didn't fear death and having
Yeah.
faith. She didn't fear death. And many times, in these, you may have encountered this where the clinician will say, how are you feeling? Are you feeling depressed? And she would say, no, I am so sad for my family. I am so sorry for my family, because she knew what she meant to the entire clan. And then she would cry. Her voice would break. And then she had wisdom. It was not just about being brave, although she certainly was. She stood up to the revolutionary police. She stood up to bullies. She stood up to the guard. The day that we were being kicked out of the house, the guard tried to pick a fight with my father, and she intervened and said, because he said, who wears the pants in this family? That's a huge insult to a Cuban man. Who decided to leave here? And she jumped in and said, I did. He didn't have any. It's me. I'm the one. I hate communism. So that just distracted him, and then he could focus on her, because she knew my father was going to get into a fist fight, and then we would we would not leave.
Anna, let's go back to her lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I have Make Yourself Brave.
Yes.
Ponte Guapa. I have Life Goes On. I wrote down Faith. I don't know if you would say that as a lesson.
Faith was definitely a lesson. She didn't teach it so much as live it. Mentioning God is a constant thing in our house and many Latino households. It's, si Dios quiere, if God wills it, alabado sea Dios, praise to God. There are all kinds of expressions. So God is always sort of present.
Anna, do you have more lessons for me?
I think that standing up for truth and for your rights and for the people who are vulnerable was a very important lesson. She didn't teach it, she lived it. There was an incident, and this is in the book. One of her workers, her high school employees, was accused of stealing by the agents that the company sent around to spy on workers to make sure nobody was stealing. And they wanted to fire her. And Mommy said, no, I'm not firing that girl. That girl did not steal. And I will bet my life on it that you have made a mistake. And you need to go back and find your records and see what happened, because you've made a mistake. And they said, well, you have to fire her. And if you don't fire her, then we're firing you. And she said, well, then you'll have to fire me. And they suspended her from the job. And then they did make a mistake, and they came back and apologized. But for several days, it looked like my mother was earned more than my father. She was going to lose her job over this incident. And that's just how she was. She was going to stand up for whoever needed to be protected and for what is right. We're not just passing through. We got to do some work while we're here, and that's one of the things we do. I have other stories, but I know we're way over.
But do you have any more lessons before we jump into?
She said, you always have to have a dream to look forward to in life. Maybe it's a birthday that you're looking forward to, and a vacation. You're saving for a new sofa that seems unreachable, but you're going to get there and you can look at it, or whatever it is. It wouldn't have been a material thing, but always have a dream, always have something to look forward to. It keeps you moving, and it keeps you enjoying life. There's that saying about you enjoy things. I can't remember how you say it, but you enjoy things more than when you're dreaming about them than when you have them.
In German is Vorfreude ist die schönste Freude. Before joy is the biggest joy. The joy before it really happens.
Oh, yes.
And I'm really missing a good English translation for that.
Yes, I can't think of it myself.
Anna, before we wrap up, a very, very important question. What is something she was not able to teach you? Something important you had to learn yourself?
Okay, I'll tell you. She could get really angry. And she didn't hold on to anger for long. And I don't know how she did that. She expressed herself. When she was mad, you knew she was mad, and she could let it go. I wish that she had taught me how to do that, because I tend to hold a grudge. And I think that this is actually another lesson that she taught us, which was that happiness is a choice and bitterness is also a choice. And whatever you do, don't stay bitter. And when I think about grudges, that's really what it is. You're bitter. Mommy could hold her grudge for a while, but not for long. She let it go. She was the most optimistic and positive person, incredibly positive. So yeah, I think if I could have learned from her how it was that she let go.
That's a very original one. I like this one. I am very much like your mom, and my mom is too. And we grow out like this. We're very emotional. We flame up very quickly, unfortunately.
Yep.
We go through huge emotions, but we also drop them very quickly.
I
And
think it's
I'm married
healthier.
to, it's healthier. I'm married to a man who is half British and is the
Oh,
opposite.
yeah, that's flatline. That's flatline.
Yeah.
That's flatline. No, they
It's
were
when
there.
he's stuck in a feeling, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. I'm quite looking at him. I'm quite grateful for for
Yeah. No,
this
that's
weird.
true. That's true, right? You
Yeah.
learn from each other.
Anna, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Oh, Anna, it was a pleasure. I wish I had known your mom.
Oh, I wish
I
I've known
bet.
you. I feel like I did, having read the
Yeah.
book and now speaking to you, I feel like I did.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's
they
why.
both sound like, sorry, but they both sound like such forces of nature, forces of, how should I say, womanhood, like what strong women are and should be.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. How lucky
Yeah.
we were.
If we were lucky. Let's carry it on.
Let's carry it on. And I love what you're doing. This is great that
Thank
you're
you.
doing this.
Thank you, Anna.
So good
Thank
luck
you.
with everything and your family. Many blessings.
You too. And
Thank
good luck
you.
to your book. I really hope it reaches the readers it deserves.
Yes. Oh, I should mention, Anna, that yes, Property of the Revolution, and it's available everywhere. It's in audiobook. I narrate the audiobook. And I have a website, anacubana.com.
I will put a link in episode notes.
And the Cuba Curious is a way to stay in touch with me too, because that way you can find out what's going on in human rights issues in Cuba. So I'm doing my bit. I'm keeping my mother's dream of a democratic Cuba. I'm holding that dream for her.
You're doing that. Good luck, Anna. Thank you again.
You too, Anna. Have a good day.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyoumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.